I'm Todd Grugel, the MnDOT ADA program engineer. I was born and raised in Moorhead, Minnesota, and went to school at North Dakota State University in civil engineering. In 1997, I started working with MnDOT in the bridge office designing bridges. After that, I had various roles in construction, water resources, maintenance, but that's not the whole story. In 1998, I was out inspecting that bridge I just designed, and the contractor was cutting off the bridge piling that supports bridges, cutting off the excess, and I was over measuring about 24 feet away, and there was this 25-foot steel piling that fell like a tree, 850 pounds on my shoulder, and it sheared my back at the T11 vertebrae, leaving me permanently in a wheelchair, basically with a spinal cord injury. But I guess you do what you do. You don't expect it, but you move on as best you can. And in 2010, the commissioner asked me to head up the ADA engineering unit to try to make our right-of-ways more accessible for folks with disabilities. For the next few minutes, I'd like to tell you about the excellent work our unit has been doing to do just that. A big part of our program is conducting field walks, where we go out in the field and assess the actual conditions and see if there's any accessibility barriers. And so we're out here, we take a lot of measurements and just basically make sure our slopes are working and what our existing conditions are. And we're doing this today on North Olson Memorial Highway in North Minneapolis. And basically we have a complaint from a resident because the accessibility at this quadrant is actually really poor. And we have a project coming in 5 years, but we just can't wait that long. So our unit takes the lead in developing some of those quick projects that are responsive to those complaints. So today I'm with the ADA unit. Joe Zilka and I lead that effort, and we have 3 consultants with us today that help us a lot. And doing that kind of request project. But normally we are with the districts doing, they deliver all the construction projects. So we do about 80 field walks a year throughout the state, and which is a large part of, like I said, a large workload. If you can look at these graphics, you can see we're going through about 80 a year. So over a 6-year period of that, we have 500 active projects between field walks, scoping, design, and plan reviews, which is a big part of our work. We review over 350 plans each year for those projects at different stages. We also look at the geometric layout reviews and permit and plat reviews and city and state aid reviews. We have a lot of project meetings that go along with that, and we field a lot of questions for all of those 500 projects that we have. So I think that's good for this corner. We're going to get at it and get to work and improve some accessibility. So what are you guys finding out here for crosswalks? We're on a construction site today in Crosby, Minnesota, where a part of our team, Dustin Walls, is watching the inspection of a pour. And this is actually where it's very important that we're out here, because this is the long-lasting product. A lot of work has gone into this project at this point, design and project development, but it really matters that what hits the ground here is going to last for the next 20 or more years. So we need to get it right. And we have Harvey Unruh behind the camera today, who actually works with Dustin doing construction support. And that's kind of all of where our unit goes, A to Z, even on the filming today. What goes into construction is, a lot of checking forms, checking grades, but also we're working with, we help develop the standard plans, the special provisions, contractor pay items, to make sure it all comes together. We also train over 1,500 contracts through our certification program, as well as consultants and MnDOT city and county staff. I actually do design training as well. We've trained over 1,000 designers in the last 4 years. So you can see this is where it really hits the ground, and this is where it really matters that our unit, along with the districts and the project teams, are making sure it's a successful product. We're still in Crosby, and we've talked curb ramps, making them accessible, but I wanted to show you sidewalks as well, because that is so important. We were able to make a flat sidewalk par here, so I'm not fighting cross slope, and we use variable slopes in our roadway and boulevard and our curb line to actually match these alcoves so I can go right in and out of any business, so that's great. And again, along with the no cross slope, these joints are all saw cut, so there's really no bumps or really very little resistance. So this is great. I'm ready to go see what else Crosby's got to offer. I'm in Lake City, where we had a reconstruct project last year with a lot of nice features, but this is a particularly busy signalized intersection with two trunk highways, so there's always challenges making everything meet with turning movements. But we did it fairly well here with this curb ramp. It's a depressed corner because we had a small area so that we couldn't have two individual ramps, but we were able to actually match into this doorway, which is good. So we have access into the building, and to accomplish this, we raised the flow line, so we moved the drainage to either side. So there's a lot of engineering that goes into a corner like this, but finally we actually had APS push buttons as well, which is standard for what we do. We hit the signal, and it's audible cues that give individual who might be blind or low vision the exact same cues that sighted individuals have. And now I can safely cross the intersection. I'd like to talk to you about the project we had in Glenwood, Minnesota. With the downtown reconstruct, we had a fairly wide corridor, so we were able to add some multimodal facilities. You can see I just wheeled up the sidewalk portion, but we also have a green space or amenity zone between, and then finally on the outside near the back of curb, we have a separated bike lane. This project did a good job of separating the modes between bike and ped, and also this amenity boulevard actually allowed us to match into the doorways better, where we made up some elevations. But I'd like to show you some challenges we had at the corner. So I'm at the intersection, and before I talked, there was good separation back in the amenity space. But as you get to the intersection, you lose that amenity, and the two modes need to come together into this single curb ramp. So there's mixing in that sense, but also there's this sidewalk par from the side street coming in, and there's mixing here as well. So it's kind of a conflict point for those 2 or 3 or 4 different modes and paths of travel, which always is a challenge for any users, but can be an extra challenge for individuals who are blind. So here we are in Duluth, and everyone always wonders, how do you make ADA work in Duluth? And yeah, it's challenging. We've got a 6 to 8% grade going up Mesaba Avenue, and all your sidewalks are just going to match that. But you can do a lot at the intersections to make them accessible. For example, at the medians, we elongated the median crossings and built traverses, basically flattening out the slope with the longer run, and made them accessible. And once we did that, we were able to actually install a pedestrian crossing at the signal itself. There never was one here before, and that was a shame because there's a lot of ped traffic that had to play Frogger just going through the intersection to get to this Bethel Social Service Agency. Again, a lot of pedestrian traffic, so ADA helped the overall pedestrian network as well. And this corner in particular is very challenging. There's 8 steps, so that's a lot of grade to manage. There was always 8 steps here before. It was a true barrier to get into West Duluth. But take a look at what we did at this switchback to make sure it was accessible. Let's see how it works. And this intersection, this quadrant in particular, took a lot of engineering, a lot of surveys and design and looking at alternates, but we got everything to meet standards. We've got less than an 8% slope here, handrails on both sides. As I come down, there's a landing for every 30 inches of vertical rise, and this landing also gives us access to the Bethel. So that's great, 2 birds with 1 stone. And we're off MnDOT right away now, so we use a partnership with them to improve their access as well as maintain or create access for us. So as I come down to this next landing, we will need to traverse back down on top of an existing retaining wall. But this whole quadrant, we made up, again, those 8 steps. It used to be a barrier coming into Duluth, but now it is completely accessible. So I take a lot of satisfaction out of this, and I enjoy the challenges, and really that's what it takes to be good at ADA. You have to want to improve things and like a challenge. So this corner was a very good example of that. Snelling Avenue in St. Paul, where we did a project in 2015 that was a mill and overlay project. That's the majority of what MnDOT does, is preservation projects. So it was required that we actually complete the curb ramp. That's a federal requirement that all agencies have to do on mill and overlay projects. But we took the extra step to actually do all of the sidewalks and all of the pedestrian facilities in the ADA transition plan, the driveways, the crosswalks, the APS. So I'd like to show you some before and after slides and tell you more about this project. It's kind of the main street of Minnesota. It connects downtown, 94 St. Paul kind of comes through here up to the State Fair grounds of Minnesota. And it was a really successful project for us. Showed we didn't have to have an urban reconstruct to do all of our sidewalks. Because as an agency, if we were waiting for those urban reconstructs, and if we waited that long, it would have taken us 100 years to complete our transition plan on our sidewalks. That just wasn't deemed reasonable by us as an agency. So we made the commitment to do all that in 20 years and to do a lot of it on preservation type projects. And that was a huge commitment from our agency. But from a user perspective, 20 years may actually seem still like a long time, but we've really taken a big leap, and we should expect other agencies to do that as well, because every agency has to do their curb ramps, but the sidewalks are more of a longer time frame, a less determined time frame. So what MnDOT did was really control our liability, so we can actually quickly complete our transition plan or more expediently, but also it's doing the right thing, making sure it's usable for all, the sidewalks are usable for all users. So I feel proud that we did that, and it was a big commitment, and our unit's taking the lead in delivering those sidewalks with $10 million a year of funding. Looking back over the last 11 years since the ADA unit was first created, I guess you can say the ADA unit story has become my story. Circumstances brought me to this position that I never really thought I'd be a member of, but it's allowed me to turn obstacles into opportunities and really make a difference in people's everyday lives. We have a very small but very dedicated unit at ADA unit at MnDOT, where, but I will say we are national leaders in roadside pedestrian infrastructure. We make significant improvements in people's lives and allow them to engage into their community. And I'm proud to be a member of this ADA unit, and I'm proud to lead it into the future and continue making those same improvements. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share my story with you today, and I hope it's inspired you and informed you to engage with your public officials and expect these same accessibility improvements no matter where you live, in which community across the state of Minnesota or across the country. So thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.